Greta for canceling my sister's emergency house keys after catching her using my private home gym and living room to run an unapproved backyard daycare. The property market in Portland, Oregon requires absolute professional focus to navigate, but after 8 years of intense career dedication, I finally purchased my dream home. It is a modern, minimalist, mid-century property nestled against a quiet wooded lot. Because my career demands long hours, frequent travel, and a high level of mental discipline, I designed my home to be a sanctuary of absolute order and peace. The lower level features a fully customized, professional-grade home gym, a space I built with high-end, heavy-duty machinery, calibrated weights, and specialized flooring to maintain my physical health. My home was my ultimate retreat, but a sudden change in my travel schedule revealed that while I was away protecting my career, my home was being systematically converted into a chaotic, high-liability commercial playground. To understand how this boundary was breached, you have to understand my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe is 28 years old, chronically disorganized, and operates with a fluid definition of personal responsibility. She treats life as a series of temporary moments, frequently hopping from one casual gig to another. 3 months ago, Chloe lost her position at a local retail boutique and announced she was going to pivot into community child management, which essentially meant babysitting neighborhood kids for cash under the table. Because I travel out of state for business at least twice a month, I wanted to ensure my property was secure in the event of an atmospheric river or a plumbing emergency. I trusted my sister enough to give her a physical emergency backup key to my house. Chloe, this key is strictly for emergencies, I told her clearly when I handed it over in our kitchen. If a pipe bursts or the security alarm malfunctions while I'm in Seattle or San Francisco, I need you to be able to let the technicians in. That is it. Oh, totally, big sis. Chloe had laughed, slipping the brass key onto her messy keychain. You are so corporate and intense. Don't worry, your temple of silence is completely safe with me. I believed her. I thought the clear boundaries of our adult relationship would protect my space. Then came yesterday morning. I was scheduled to fly to Seattle for a 3-day corporate consulting conference, but at 6 a.m., the client texted to inform me that the regional director had contracted a severe case of influenza, postponing the meetings until next month. My flight was canceled, and I found myself with an unexpected open Friday at home. By 8:30 a.m., I was sitting in my upstairs home office, enjoying a quiet cup of coffee. That was when a loud, grinding crunch echoed from my driveway, followed by the high-pitched, chaotic chorus of multiple screaming toddlers. I stood up from my desk, my brow furrowing as I walked over to the large glass windows overlooking my front courtyard. Pulling up to my curb was a massive, battered minivan. The sliding door flew open, and a harried-looking woman stepped out, ushering 3 small children onto my meticulously manicured front walkway. Before I could even process what I was looking at, my front door swung open from the outside. I heard Chloe's voice echoing up the stairwell, echoing off the minimalist concrete floors. All right, little ducklings, single file line. Welcome to Chloe's Creative Daycare Academy. Put your juice boxes on the glass table. My heart stopped. I quietly walked down the floating oak staircase, stepping into the main living space. The site was an absolute logistical nightmare. My living room, which features a low-profile cream Italian leather sectional and a custom wool rug, had been completely upended. Chloe had dragged 3 massive plastic storage bins full of cheap, sticky plastic toys directly onto the hardwood floors. A toddler in muddy sneakers was actively jumping on my leather sofa, smeared chocolate prominently displayed on his fingers. Another child was scribbling with a bright pink crayon directly onto the baseboards of my hallway. Chloe was standing by the kitchen island, completely oblivious, scrolling through her phone while pouring tap water into a series of disposable plastic cups. Chloe, I said, my voice cutting through the chaotic screaming of the 4 children like an absolute ice pick. Chloe jumped, her phone slipping from her fingers and clattering onto the quartz countertop. She spun around, her eyes widening in pure, unadulterated terror as she realized her entire operational matrix had just imploded. Sarah, she gasped, her voice hitting a manic, high-pitched octave. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Seattle. Your flight left at 7. My meeting was postponed, I said, stepping down into the living room, my eyes tracking a toddler who was currently wiping his nose directly onto my custom drapes. Chloe, explain to me exactly why there is a commercial childcare operation running inside my private residence. It's just a temporary pop-up, Chloe stammered, stepping forward defensively, trying to block my view of the living room. The community center flooded this week, and the parents had nowhere to go. I'm just watching a few local neighborhood kids for a couple of hours. I didn't think it would be a big deal. Before I could answer, a loud, heavy metallic crash echoed from the lower level, the exact location of my custom home gym. I marched past Chloe, ignoring her frantic pleas, and threw open the door to the basement staircase. I ran down the steps, my stomach twisting into a heavy knot of pure rage. The basement gym was absolute chaos. 2 5-year-old boys were currently playing tag inside the lifting zone. One of them had unlatched a heavy 40-pound solid steel dumbbell from the top rack. He had dropped it directly onto the specialized rubber flooring, but it had rolled, leaving a deep, jagged gouge in the custom drywall of the accent wall. Even more horrifying, the younger child was actively trying to climb the cables of my commercial pulley machine, using the heavy iron selector pin as a footstep. If that pin slipped, or if the cable snapped under his shifting weight, hundreds of pounds of solid iron plates would crush his hands instantly. Stop! Do not touch that machinery, I yelled, rushing forward and pulling the child child safely away from the iron stack. Chloe came sprinting down the stairs behind me, her face pale. "They're just exploring, Sarah. It's sensory play." "They're fine." "Sensory play?" I turned on her, my voice dropping into that cold, professional authority I use when a corporate contract breaches liability limits. "Chloe, this machinery is weighted to crush bones. This is not a playground. If one of these children is injured on my property, my insurance will not cover a single dime of the medical bills because you are running an illegal, unlicensed commercial business inside a residential zone. I am personally liable for their lives, and you used an emergency key to expose me to absolute financial and legal ruin. You are completely overreacting," Chloe yelled back, her voice echoing off the gym mirrors. "The parents pay me cash. I make $400 a day doing this. I can finally pay my rent this month, and you're mad about a little mark on the wall? You have a giant house and a massive salary, and you can't even let your own sister use your empty basement to survive? Pack their bags, call their parents, and get every single one of these children off my property right now," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "If there is a single child left in this house by 10 a.m., I am calling Child Protective Services and the local police to report a major unlicensed daycare breach." Chloe realized I wasn't bluffing. She let out a dramatic, sobbing scream of frustration, grabbed the two boys, and began herding the crying toddlers up the stairs. By 10:15 a.m., the minivan had returned. The parents had hastily collected their children after receiving frantic texts from Chloe, and my house was empty. But the fallout was only beginning. I stood in my kitchen looking at the destruction. There were sticky juice stains on the quartz island, chocolate residue on my premium leather sofa, a deep gouge in my gym wall, and crayon marks along 30 feet of my hallway. Chloe was sitting on the front porch steps, weeping loudly, refusing to leave the property until she had confronted my lack of empathy. I walked over to the front door, extended my hand, and looked down at her. "Give me the emergency key, Chloe." "No," she sobbed, looking up at me with absolute fury. "You're ruining my business. I have parents locked into contracts for the next 3 weeks while you're traveling. I already spent the deposit money on my car payment. You have an empty house 2 weeks out of the month. Why do you care if a few kids play down here? You're being a selfish, cold-hearted dictator? The key, Chloe, now." When she refused to move her hands from her pockets, I simply stepped back inside and locked the heavy deadbolt. I didn't argue, I didn't yell, and I didn't try to force her physically. Instead, I took out my phone and called a premium, 24-hour mobile locksmith service located in downtown Portland. "I need a complete master cylinder replacement for a mid-century residential smart lock system," I told the dispatcher. "And I need it rushed immediately." Within 45 minutes, the locksmith van pulled into my driveway. Chloe watched from the porch in absolute shock as the technician systematically dismantled the locks on my front door, my garage side door, and the sliding patio entrance. I paid $450 out of pocket to completely erase her physical access from my life. By the time the technician handed me the brand new high-security laser-cut keys, my phone had already begun to detonate with a coordinated barrage of text messages from our mother, Marie. The family group chat became an absolute war zone by Friday afternoon. Chloe had driven straight to our mother's house, spinning a narrative of extreme victimization. "Sarah, I am absolutely appalled by your behavior," my mother's voice message stated, her tone dripping with old-fashioned guilt. "Your sister is finally trying to build a business and get her life together after a terrible setback. She found a clever way to utilize an empty asset, your house, while you were away. To throw her out into the street, threaten her with the police, and change the locks on her is completely vindictive. She is your sister. Family helps family build their dreams. You are being incredibly cruel." I sat at my kitchen island, my laptop open, systematically documenting the damage to my home. I took high-resolution photos of the gouged drywall, the crayon marks, and the chocolate stains on the Italian leather. I drafted a direct reply to the family group chat, keeping my tone completely mature, professional, and unyielding. "To Mom and Chloe, I am putting an absolute end to this conversation. This morning, I caught Chloe running an unlicensed, unapproved, and uninsured commercial daycare business inside my private home. She used an emergency key, which was given exclusively for home maintenance crises, to smuggle multiple toddlers into my house while she assumed I was out of state. This isn't about helping a sister. This is about absolute legal and physical liability. Chloe had toddlers playing inside a high-end weight room with heavy iron machinery. If a child had been crushed or injured, I would be the one facing an absolute catastrophic civil lawsuit and criminal negligence charges as the property owner. My home insurance does not cover illicit commercial childcare. Furthermore, my property has sustained physical damage, crayon on the walls, gouges in the gym drywall, and stains on my leather furniture. The locks have been changed today at a personal cost of $450. Chloe's emergency key access is permanently canceled. If she is ever found on my property without my explicit invitation again, I will file a formal criminal trespass report with the Portland Police Department. If you believe protecting my home and my legal safety makes me cruel, then I accept that description. The boundary is absolute. Sarah." The message dropped into the chat like a lead weight. My mother didn't reply for 3 hours. When she finally did, her tone had shifted from angry to deeply embarrassed. Realized the sheer scale of the legal risk Chloe had exposed the family to. It is now Saturday evening, and the silence has finally returned to my Portland sanctuary. The physical restoration is underway. I spent the morning scrubbing the crayon marks from my hallway baseboards with a magic eraser and applying a clean coat of touch-up paint. A professional leather technician is is scheduled to arrive on Monday to deep clean the chocolate stains from my sectional, and a handyman is coming to repair the gouged drywall in my home gym. The total cost of the cleanup and the locksmith will pass $1,000, a bill I am sending directly to Chloe's email, though I know she will likely never have the financial accountability to pay it. Chloe has completely blocked my number and scrubbed her social media accounts of her Daycare Academy advertising, terrified that local zoning officers or licensing boards might look into her unverified operation. My mother called me an hour ago, her voice quiet and subdued. She admitted that Chloe had left out the details about the home gym and the heavy iron weights, and she apologized for her initial emotional reaction. Our relationship with Chloe is fractured, and the next family gathering will undoubtedly be incredibly tense. But as I stand in my quiet, beautifully ordered kitchen, looking at the secure, newly keyed front door, I feel a profound sense of relief. I am not the asshole. Protecting your home isn't a sign of family coldness. It is a fundamental requirement of adult life. I refuse to let my hard-earned property be turned into an illicit, high-risk commercial playground for an entitled sibling. Because I changed those locks, my home is no longer a liability. It is exactly what it was always meant to be, my safe, pristine temple of absolute peace.